Welcome back. Heading over to New Mexico, where a jury has found the armorer of the film Rust, 26-year-old Hannah Gutierrez Reed, guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but not guilty of tampering with evidence. Gutierrez Reed faces up to 18 months in prison. But what does this mean for the man who was holding the gun on that fateful day? Joining us now to discuss is criminal defense attorney and former Morris County prosecutor Bob Bianchi. Bob, thanks for being with us tonight.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Bob, I have so many questions. I'm not an attorney, but I do like to watch criminal trials, particularly high-profile ones, because I think it's such a great window for Americans to understand the greatest justice system in the world and what truly sets us apart from other systems around the world where, here we're innocent until proven guilty. And I thought this was a really interesting case, so much so to where I was actually a little surprised by the verdict. Were you? No one put the bullet in her hand of the live round. She wasn't the one who handed the gun to Baldwin, who pulled the trigger. Were you surprised?
Was I surprised? Nothing surprises me anymore, but that's not really an answer. Okay, so my legal answer is this is a very kind of twisted case because typically speaking, criminal law, when I prosecuted cases, and pretty much throughout the United States, you're prosecuting people who actually intend an action or a consequence to occur. In other words, they're acting purposefully or they're acting knowingly or they're looking to shoot to kill somebody. But there's that little sliver of the law that deals with negligence and recklessness. That is, not that it's just an accident, but if your conduct is such that it was reasonably certain, even though you didn't intend it to happen, it was so reckless that it was a conscious disregard for a known risk, you can be prosecuted. Now, I can tell you as a person who led a prosecutorial agency, I was very careful about prosecuting people for accidents and things that they did not intend. However, in this particular case, do I think this prosecution was worthy? I do. And the reason for that is that she, as the armorer, is given the responsibility for making sure that live rounds and live weapons do not wind up on scene. This is an industry standard. This is not something that's wistful and best practices. This is what you're supposed to do. And her responsibility and her knowledge of the importance of that responsibility and what she did not do, not just what she did, but what she did not do, abdicated that responsibility, and prosecutors alleged and proved beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury that that abdication of the duty was known, it was breached, and it caused somebody to die. So in this case, I don't think with respect to her, the jury's decision surprised me.
Well, here's where I'm confused, because if she, as the armorer, had the overall responsibility, despite the fact that they couldn't prove, I think it was OSHA testimony, couldn't prove that she was the one who put the live round in the gun, she didn't hand the gun over and everything I already described, then why is anybody else charged? Why was David Halls, actually, he did a plea deal. He was the first assistant director. And why is Alec Baldwin facing charges if she, as the armorer, had the overall responsibility?
Yeah, I think those are great questions, and I think that that's why a lot of legal analysts are challenging the theory of the case. I'm really glad you asked that because we just talked about what would make her responsible. This was her duty, her responsibility. It didn't make a difference if she put the bullet in or not. It's because they know accidents can happen and that she is a per se safety person that's supposed to make sure that doesn't happen. She had a direct causal relationship. Now, the more you move out to that question, like the other person who pled guilty, he made a decision at that point in time to cut his wrists. I had this happen all the time when I was a prosecutor. I'm looking into you, and a defense lawyer says, hey, listen, if we come forward, we're willing to cooperate because he did testify for the government in this case, and we're willing to assist and admit responsibility right now. Will you cut back the possibility of the sentence if we do that? And a lot of times cases resolve that way. He didn't have to do that. He chose to do that. And with Alec Baldwin, listen, I got to be honest with you. I'm a little upset, a little concerned as a person that was a prosecutor for a long time and ran an agency about the politics that have been involved in this particular case. This is amateur hour like I've never seen it before. First they charge him, then they uncharge him. Then the prosecutor that was prosecuting the case had an ethical responsibility not to be on that case. And now this prosecutor's prosecuting prosecuting and fundraising off of it. It's no different because people look at a lot of times, Andrew, a lot of people say to me, oh, well, you're either pro-Democrat or you're pro-Republican. It has nothing to do with that. It's just like when the state attorney general in New York campaigned against Donald Trump. You shouldn't be advertising, getting contributions, doing things in order to convince a constituency, if you will, that you're going to prosecute this person. So Alec Baldwin's prosecution, in my mind, has been so bastardized from a prosecutorial perspective for all the mistakes that they've made. I have no confidence in it, and I think it's been politically driven, and that really concerns me.
Well, I'm concerned about the politics behind it as well, because there are many people, other legal commentators like yourself, who actually think that in some way she was scapegoated, because if she was responsible because she had this overall responsibility as the armorer, even though she didn't put the bullet in the gun, they can't prove it, she didn't hand the gun, he was the one who pointed the trigger. He was the one who pointed the gun at her, which, you know, I'm not an expert on set, you know, chain of command and different procedures. That was a violation of procedures. More importantly, there was video that was shown with him being the executive producer where he's yelling and barking orders, actually directing the scene, and barking at Hannah Gutierrez Reed, where he basically assumed ultimate responsibility for the entire set. And so there are many people who feel like ultimately he was the one who should have been charged from the beginning, but for the fact that he is an elite and he is a big name in terms of liberal policies, many people feel that that's why there was the back and forth from the beginning, and he should have borne the brunt of the charges initially. Your response?
Well, there's a lot there to unpack. I mean, I think that the politics of it has actually inured to his detriment, not to any kind of benefit. And the more I agree that the theory of the prosecution's case has to be that he was the overall supervisor. But the fact of the matter is, the reason the armorer is there and the reason the director checked the gun beforehand as well is to give confidence to those actors and people that are on the set that the weapon is not live. And when he's handed the weapon and told the weapon is not live, he specifically told that there's supposed to be a reasonable amount of reliance that an actor, forget about whether it's Alec Baldwin or anyone else, is that they don't have to go through yet another safety check. That's the whole reason the armorer is there in the first place. Now, do I agree that they may bear some responsibility from the standpoint of a civil negligence perspective? That is, you breached a duty, you were responsible, you should have known better, you should have better protocols. Yes. The question becomes from a criminal perspective, it's not mere negligence. It means that his actions, his actual actions, were a conscious disregard to a known risk. If the jury buys, which there's going to be evidence, that he should never have pointed the weapon, even though the armorer cleared it, and even though the director cleared it, if the jury is to find that that is gross negligence, a conscious disregard, then he'll be convicted. I guess what I want to say in terms of what happened with the prosecution is I, in my entire career, have never seen a case that's been indicted, unindicted, indicted, unindicted, unindicted, people campaigning and getting contributions. I mean, first of all, you have a prosecutor going after him that's told that by law, you're not allowed to participate in it because it's a conflict of interest because of your political position. That person's removed from the case. Now we have a prosecutor taking contributions for it. I don't see it. I think it's bad.
Well, speaking of politics and accountability, let's talk District Attorney Fani Willis. You know, her being busted continues to, you know, just continue to grow in different areas. First, she was busted for having an improper relationship. She's obviously been financially benefiting from it. She's been lying about it. She lied on the stand. I mean, it's obviously she perjured herself. Now we've even got reports of her trying to tamper with witnesses, like Wade's former divorce attorney. You know, what an abomination of our justice system, Bob.
Well, this one really gets to my heart. I got to be honest with you. As a former prosecutor, I take seriously the idea, just like we're talking about in the other case right there, that you are supposed to be pristine as a prosecutor. Now, we're human beings. We make mistakes. I did the job for 6 years while I was in charge. You're making thousands and thousands of decisions, but every day your North Star is doing the right thing and giving the public confidence that at least you're trying, the perception of the appearance of propriety. This, to me, is worse than any kind of mistake you can think of. This was something where she is going after the president of the United States, the biggest prosecution politically, if you will, that has ever existed in the United States of America. And before you pull that trigger and let that round out of the gun, no pun intended, given the Baldwin case, you got to make sure that you're as clean as can be, that your evidence is pristine, and that your motive is pristine as well. Now, anyone, she's not stupid, anyone, I don't care about whether you had the relationship before you got the job or while you got the job. I know everyone else is concerned about that, but I'm not. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the ethics of a prosecutor. It's even worse to me if you gave the guy the job and then you got engaged in an intimate relationship. To me, it's an ethics violation. The relationship between an employer and an employee, that's a whole nother issue. The independence of the prosecutor is now thrown off because there's an intimate personal relationship with the person who runs the agency. This comes down to nothing but sheer arrogance. You cannot tell me that she is either unaware that this thing would come to the forefront and potentially scuttle her whole prosecution. And she didn't care about that. And she's sitting in that seat, what really gets to me, and has an attitude as if she's being put upon when she did something as stupid as that she did, as arrogant. I don't even think it's stupid. I think she knew it, and she was arrogant enough to think that I can do whatever I want and no one's got a right to tell me what to do. And she deserves everything she gets. And you know what? For those who want to see Mr. Trump prosecuted, they should be as upset as I am right now, because she threw the monkey wrench in there that will never allow, if a jury were to even get this case, and they were ever to convict, people to believe that they could have trust in the process because of what she did. Outrageous, and one of the most outrageous prosecutorial missteps I think I've seen in my career.
And Bob, we just appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.